Thank you, John. What I'd like to do, I've jumped a couple of slides, is really just share some thoughts with you about the challenges many of the organisations that we work with are facing, and some of the things perhaps that can be done to help deal with those challenges. We know it's tough times, the environment's changing, and motorsport industry is brilliant at speed. This is an iPod. Anyone tell me what the average lifespan of an iPod is? That's before Apple replace it with a new version of the iPod. Any guesses? 6 months. I think this is the interactive bit. Anybody else? 3 months, 4.5 months. That means that over 3 years, there will be 8 new versions of an iPod product. And not just, of course, the iPod, because the software is being upgraded every few weeks. Products are evolving at a faster and faster rate. I was talking to someone the other day who owns a Tesla, who was telling me that the other week, the software upgrade suddenly gave him 5 fan speeds for his climate control rather than 4, because that makes better use of the battery technology. Speed is critical, and it's going to get more and more critical. In motorsport, we're good at speed, but as we know, it's all relative. We've got to be faster than the competition to stay ahead. Uncertainty. I think most of us could have probably done a really good forecast for oil prices in 1965, as this graph shows. But we may have struggled in 1973. We may have struggled in 1999, and of course we struggle today. The one thing we know about every forecast is it will be wrong. We just don't know how wrong it will actually be. So we've got to deal with that uncertainty. Then we have complexity. We have the 4th industrial revolution, apparently, that we're in the middle of, where things like artificial intelligence, data, biology, technology will all come together and create new opportunities. And these new opportunities are very much at the margins. New business models, where we move from manufacturing, where people own things, to services, where you have the use of them for particular periods in time. All of this creates complexity. It creates huge opportunities, but this is complexity that we need to deal with. So what should we do? There's a great article in Race Car Engineering. There are copies out at the front by Chris Aylett. And Chris evoked Churchill. Keep buggering on. Oh, should just change the slide. Yeah, I think that's a bit better, isn't it? Yes. Keep buggering on. In other words, focus on what you're doing. Focus on what you're good at. Stick to the core business. Stick to the knitting. And that is fantastic advice. Too many people become paralyzed like rabbits in the headlights. It's really focusing on what you have to do day to day and keeping up that activity. But I'd like to offer 3 other levels to think about over the top of keep buggering on. 3 other things that it's worth focusing on as we go forward. The first, focus on your customers. Sounds obvious, but it's amazing in these times of uncertainty and challenge how we forget about our customers. We're too busy dealing with these new regulations, these new legal requirements, and we forget about the core, the lifeblood of our business, our customers. We need to think about our customers today and also constantly about where those future customers are coming from. An example is the Tune Group. I realise for many in the motorsport supply chain, Tony Fernandez may not be flavour of the month after Caterham F1 disappeared, but the way he's grown and developed his business, the Tune Group, has been phenomenal. AirAsia, the airline aspect of the operation, actually now operate more planes than Lufthansa. They have grown hugely, flying originally out of KL into Vietnam, into China, into all different parts of Asia. How have they grown that? How has this business grown that they spent 1 ringgit buying the AirAsia business from the Malaysian government? They focused on their customers. Because the way in which this business operation has developed is offering the customers new products to meet their existing needs. So when you get on an airplane, you're flying somewhere, what do you need? You need some currency. So we have Tune Money. I might need a SIM card for my phone because I don't want to pay the roaming charges, so I've got Tune Mobile. I might need somewhere to stay, so I've got a Tune Hotel. Yes, you have to pay extra for the hairdryer, but that's not a problem for me. You also have to pay extra for towels, but that's the model. Now, a key part of this, you probably can't see it on the slide, is at the bottom it says loyalty, and it's the big loyalty program. The center point of this operation is a customer relationship management CRM system that is constantly capturing data about customers, what they do, and where those opportunities might be for new businesses. If you check in some golf clubs when you're flying on an AirAsia flight, it goes into their CRM system. You will then get insurance offers, you will get competitions, incentives, all are based around the fact they know you are playing golf, or at least you checked in some golf clubs. That allows them also to develop new business ideas. You can see over here, there's something called Tune Labs. That's where they explore with new ideas for those customers. Currently, they're developing an online shopping product with that. But it is totally driven and based around the customers, what they do, what they're looking for, what is it they see in the future. Second one, adapt and learn. Stretch the culture. Peter Drucker is one of the people I've always been inspired by in the sort of guru stakes. And he came out with this great line here, culture eats strategy for breakfast. You can have whatever strategy you like, but the culture is what really drives what goes on in the organisation. Motorsport Valley has been mentioned a few times. I was involved with Chris in 2000 when we did the first study of what we call Motorsport Valley, is a shared culture. It's a shared way of doing things, an attitude, an approach. And culture develops, and it is a two-edged sword. Culture can give you competitive advantage, but it can also give you competitive disadvantage. This quote here from Tom Watson, head of IBM, I think there's a world market for about 5 computers. Why on earth would someone come out with a line like that? We laugh about that now. Well, part of the reason was this is IBM's first 5 megabyte hard drive. At that time, computers were these huge monolithic things that perhaps nations or groups of nations may afford. They saw things like the operating system, the microchip, the semiconductor as peripheral things, which is why they sold off the semiconductors to Intel and they sold off the operating system to Microsoft. They didn't see it as core to their business. Their culture was taking them down a particular direction, but the environment was moving in a different direction. So when we talk about strategic drift, we're saying these are situations where the environment is actually changing faster than the business is able to. And often it's the culture that's preventing that. So we can see many situations where businesses have been successful in one period, but fail to adapt. Fail to adapt to those new technologies, those new opportunities that we're talking about in terms of this 4th industrial revolution and these other factors. So what do you do? Well, the key here is diversity. We know that diversity brings innovation. Diversity brings in new ideas. And I'm not just talking about gender diversity, as suggested on the slide here. I'm talking about sector diversity, bringing in people from different sectors, bringing in people from different nationalities, software, hardware. Those are the kind of things that enable the culture to stretch and adapt. Focusing always on the same culture that reinvents itself may not be the best way to innovate and adapt to the kind of changing times that we're facing. And final one, stay connected. Build the network. What we see in successful organizations is that they are very well connected with regulators, with competitors, all different players in the industry. And it's these connections that help them deal with the complexity that they're facing. This is a piece on Alibaba, the internet giant that evolved really from nothing in China, took over eBay, eBay's business and so on, headed by this guy, Jack Ma. And as the New York Times shows here, they are a very connected operation. And we talk about small world networks. You know, you may think, yeah, it's all big and there's all huge change, but it's often those networks that allow people to connect and find their way forward. So focusing on using those opportunities to work with competitors, with suppliers, to build those connections is really critical in these changing times. So, the other point I was just going to say there was, and of course, therefore, it is a small world after all. Okay. So, 3 things to finish on, really. Firstly, focus on your customers. Stretch the culture. Think about ways to allow those new ideas, that diversity to build in the culture. And finally, stay connected. Focus on the networks. Make sure those relationships are sustained and built on in the changing times ahead. Thank you very much.